Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
Tonight on Our News, how much it will cost the government to purchase Grand Bahama's airport, COVAX vaccines to arrive this week, and what drove taxi drivers to protest outside Atlantis. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, the government will purchase the Grand Bahama International Airport for $1, according to the tourism minister, who says it will take nearly $50 million to rebuild it. This is Anglerston MP Glenys Hannah Martin accused government of allowing the airport's foreign owners to take cream and leave Bahamians with the burden. Jasmine Brown reports.
The tourism minister led debate on the Airport Authority Amendment Bill 2021, which seeks to make several amendments to the original act to provide for the acquisition, management and control of the GBIA and its relationship with the Grand Bahama Port Authority.
And this minister-led administration and this Minister of Aviation is of the view that the airport in Freeport, the gateway into Grand Bahama, should be owned by the government.
He revealed that the purchase price may be low, but the investment needed to get it back up to scratch will cost up to $50 million.
The purchase price is $1, plus the assumption of a portion of staff-related costs. Plus the assumption of a portion of staff-related costs, which should not exceed $1 million.
D'Aguilar said the government is looking to enter into a public-private partnership for the rebuilding. But before that happens, he says the government will spend about $1.5 million on repairs to improve the facility in the short term. The airport, owned by Hutchison Port Holdings and Port Group Limited, sustained significant flood and wind damage as a result of Hurricane Dorian in September 2019. D'Aguilar said he expects the purchase to be completed very shortly, adding once the sale is finalized, the asset will be transferred to the Airport Authority, which will create a special purpose vehicle to operate and redevelop the airport.
You've allowed a foreign investor to take all the cream and leave us with the burden in this country. And I believe, and I don't know, but I believe there's even more burden because you've not laid that heads of agreement in this parliament. We do not know what you have agreed to further burden the Bahamian people.
She also accused the government of allowing Hutchison to run off with the insurance money.
Once the acquisition of the Freeport International Airport bill, which we're debating here, is passed in the parliament, Hutchison would have successfully offloaded/dumped two economically challenging entities that were expected to grow and prosper under the hands of the giant. Hutchinson wanted out and waited for the moment. And it's the same government who let them take the insurance money and run.
There is still a lot more to be revealed about the sale, and D'Aguilar says the Minutes administration will be revealing more as time goes on. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Well, government is spending about $1 million per month to keep the Grand LUCAYAN Resort in good operating condition while it's been closed, according to Special Purpose Vehicle Chairman Michael Scott. Kyle Joaquin has that.
Within the next month to 2 months max, I would expect a deal to formalize and be announced.
2 years since the government's controversial purchase of the Grand LUCAYAN in Grand Bahama, Scott says a deal is nearing completion for it to be sold to Holistica, a joint company of Royal Caribbean International and the ITM Group. His statement came just a day before the shuttered hotel reopens its doors, bringing a few dozen employees back to work amid low bookings.
Starting with 37 employees, hopefully within the next couple of days that will grow to 50 to 60. And we've got some early bookings. They're modest, but we expect once the word gets out and we have done some aggressive marketing and promotion that bookings will pick up.
Government purchased the resort for $65 million, and as the hotel looks to bring some employees back on, Scott explains that the holding company is being very stringent with its hiring. Here's why.
We have no, and I want to make this clear, we have no agreements with any of these unions, whether it was the management staff union or the line staff. We have no agreements. We don't intend to enter into any agreements because ultimately the goal is to sell these hotels There will then be proper negotiations between whoever becomes the new owner and proprietor of the hotel and the relevant unions. But there are no sacred cows.
Royal Caribbean CEO Michael Bailey on Monday said he expects an announcement to be made very shortly. Scott says while he expects that deal to come through, there is a plan B just in case. However, the focus is now on Thursday's reopening, with employees excited to get to work.
The whole key to the food and beverage department is taking the local flavors and creating a theme so we can stamp Grand LUCAYAN as a signature local themed food and beverage operation.
So pretty much the golf course right now is in pretty good shape. We've been doing a lot of work to upgrade the golf course, clean up the golf course, make it ready for play.
And we are more than welcome and more than happy to assist anybody and make sure these bookings come in so Grand Bahama Island will economize and we would get back to where we were.
And Scott is also pushing for vaccinations, saying it's the only way for the tourism product to get back to where it needs to be.
We cannot safely do that for ourselves and for incoming guests, wherever we are in the Bahamas, unless we are vaccinated. It is important that everybody who is offered a vaccine gets vaccinated as soon as possible, as soon as your turn comes.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Well, taxi drivers protesting outside Atlantis Resort today after access to the resort was reportedly restricted. Jared Higgs tells us more.
Everybody going out?
Taxi drivers were overjoyed when they were allowed full access to the Atlantis property. But just moments earlier, dozens of them, led by Union President Wesley Ferguson, were furiously threatening repeated protests if all taxi drivers weren't allowed on property.
This will only disadvantage the guests in the hotel and disadvantage the taxi driver, disadvantage the other small hotel properties on Paradise Island.
On Wednesday morning at around 10 a.m., taxi drivers lined off along Paradise Beach Drive, blocking the eastbound lane of traffic. Police officers, some heavily armed, were called on, with taxi drivers mocking their presence. According to Ferguson, the protest was a snap decision and stemmed from a decision by Atlantis to limit the amount of taxi drivers allowed on property.
We are not going to let Atlantis determine or dictate to the Bahamas Taxi Cab Union and its taxi drivers how much of them should be able to come to work to apply for hire.
Many of these taxi drivers spent most of last year at home as the coronavirus pandemic decimated the country's tourism industry.
Yeah, bro!
Some spoke about how they spent those difficult months eating tuna and bread.
It will be a cold day in hell when the Bahamas Taxi Cab Union and taxi drivers allow Atlantis to overtake them.
It wasn't long before Atlantis' head of security opened the gate, though, and those taxi drivers filed back in. Ferguson was all smiles as he addressed the media again.
We are going in, and if they decide that they're going to do anything else to impede us, we will come back out here in greater numbers. I'll organize it this time. I'll make sure all you guys have an invitation, a ringside seat, and we'll do it in grand style, just like how we always do. Taxi drivers ain't playing, and we ain't backing down.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
The director of PAHO confirming that the Bahamas' first shipment of vaccines through the COVAX facility are expected to arrive by the end of the week. Giorgio Bain reports.
The Bahamas is among 21 countries expected to receive COVID-19 vaccines through the COVAX facility by the end of this week, according to Director of the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. Carissa Etienne, who was asked about the timeline for the vaccine shipments.
Following PAHO's negotiations with the COVAX partners, we have ensured that 21 countries in the Americas will receive their first deployment of vaccines by the end of this week. And in early April, all countries in our region will be able to receive their first deployment of vaccine.
The Bahamas began its vaccine rollout 2 weeks ago with a gift of 20,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine from the government of India. The Bahamas is expected to secure more than 100,000 doses through the COVAX facility. An initial down payment of $250,000 was made earlier this year. Etienne noted that supplies are limited and will only be able to assist a small percentage of many countries.
The amounts deployed represents in many and most cases a small percentage of the country's populations. So despite some progress, our region has been and remains the epicenter of COVID-19 pandemic.
Despite a gradual rollout of vaccines, Edian said COVID-19 cases continue to rise in the Caribbean.
Millions of people remain at risk of illness and death. We must continue to take COVID-19 seriously.
The Ministry of Health reported 18 new cases on Tuesday, 10 on New Providence, 4 on Grand Bahama, 3 on Abaco, and 1 on Eleuthera. Reporting for our News, I'm Georgia Bain.
Well, it's starting to feel like summer. Greg Thompson is in the weather studio with the details.
Thanks, Christina, and a happy hump day, everybody. Warm day around the islands. Once again, that high pressure remaining in charge. Temperature shot up into the mid-80s. 86 was the official high. We are settling into the mid-70s now, 75 degrees outside our studios. Few clouds, those winds are light and variable. And, of course, your feels-like temperature, very warm, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Nothing much to talk about around the islands. High pressure remaining in charge, suppressing most cloud development and shower activity. We will continue to see those beautiful conditions expected on the outdoors for the rest of the evening. That is your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
And still to come, a hefty price tag to upgrade Family Island airports, and vaccine rollout continues on Grand Bahama. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Family Island airports require more than $250 million in capital improvements for new terminals, runways, and other infrastructural upgrades, according to Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar, who says funding has been secured for 4 airports on Exuma, Long Island, Eleuthera, and Marsh Harbor.
A very robust, very aggressive airport redevelopment program. I think I saw, I don't go on them social media things, but someone sent me a recording where someone was standing right out there and said, where the money coming from? To build all these airports. You can't do this and you can't do that. Where is the money coming from?
More than $140 million was secured from a local financial institution. The debt will be financed by the project's cash flow. For Exuma International Airport, $53 million will come from the local institution and $12 million from the IDB. The $18 million needed for Long Island International Airport will also come from a local lending institution.
The North Eleuthera Airport is going to cost, we feel at this moment, probably another $65 million. We'll have to build a completely new runway and use the current runway as a taxiway. The IDB has assigned $18 million to that project. And obviously, the local funding institution will have to come up with the remaining $47 million.
Well, Anglerston MP Glenys Hannah Martin slamming Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis over his participation in the We March protest in January 2017 when he was in opposition. Her comments come 2 days after DNA leader Arinthia Komalafe and 8 DNA members were arrested for allegedly attempting to breach Parliament earlier this month.
The breakaway group assembled at Rawson Square for about 15 minutes. And then in that breakaway group, which included some 300 protesters who ignored the calls of organizers to abide by the permit. Among the protesters in that breakaway group was Free National Movement leader Hubert Minnis and several of his party's candidates. I wonder if any sitting in here today. I stand today in solidarity with the members of the DNA, Speaker.
Attorney General Carl Bethel and National Security Minister Marvin Dames have dismissed claims the arrests were politically motivated as unfounded. Hannah Martin says Bethel should have remained mum on the matter.
I heard the dialogue of the Attorney General, who I was surprised because the Commissioner says he's still investigating. And I heard some comments from the Attorney General, which I thought might have been ill-advised, having regard to his position in the judicial and legal system.
In other news, Grand Bahama residents say they are satisfied with the vaccine rollout on that island. Jillian Gray has that.
I have been locked down for a long time, and I want to get loose now. So I thought to come and get the shot so soon as the country can open up, I can shake my leg someplace else around the world.
Reverend John Wallace described his experience as fantastic and says it was as easy as a regular doctor checkup. Neville Adderley says he didn't even feel the stick. Though his brother in Minnesota discouraged him from taking the vaccine, he made up his mind to take it after that same brother was infected with COVID-19.
The last thing he told me when we spoke yesterday, he said, go and get the vaccine. For God's sake, get the vaccine. So that persuaded me to try to get in today.
The majority of Dr. Paul Ward's patients are hesitant to take the vaccine, but he's been trying to convince them that it's safe.
Bahamians are continuously telling me that I want to wait. I want to wait and see. Their concern is that they say they're not sure of the safety. But I reassure the patients that the vaccine is safe. If they're worried about clotting, I tell them that is not really, I don't think the vaccine causes any clotting in the average person, and I suggested that they can get the vaccine, including pregnant patients.
Vaccine hesitancy can be due to a lack of information, according to Dr. Catherine Adderley, who says misinformation usually gets to patients first and is often easier to understand.
We get attracted by slick and pretty things, and a lot of times medical literature and medical advice is difficult to digest. So that's why we have to try to make the information that's out there easy to digest, easy to understand, so that people will trust it, and it has to come from trustworthy people as well.
For Grand Bahama resident Martha Cartwright, she could not have been happier to line up to take the vaccine, but is disappointed that others don't feel the same.
It saddens me when people don't want to trust doctors and medicine and scientists, but in their minds they have cause. So for those of us that are willing to get the vaccine, we can only hope we can get enough of us vaccinated to protect all of us.
Grand Bahama's vaccine rollout was launched this past Sunday, inoculating 50 people in that exercise. Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
Still to come, an impressive performance by the UB Mingos. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is our news. Welcome back. Well, the COVID-19 vaccine rollout is well underway on 2 islands as the Bahamas plays catch up to get our population vaccinated. But how does the vaccine rollout impact our local economy and the economic outlook? Joining us via Skype is RF Vice President of Investments, David Slatter. Welcome.
Hi, Christina.
So tell us, what is the outlook for local stocks over the next 12 months?
Well, when it comes to local stocks or stocks in general, one needs to be looking forward at least 12 months when you're making investment decisions today. So if you look at the results that have been coming out recently, some of the results have been rather depressing, but those are historic values or results. And our expectation is that given the vaccine rollout locally, the $1.9 trillion stimulus package in the U.S., and the very impressive vaccine rollout in the U.S., our main market for tourists, this bodes well for a second half of the year recovery in tourism, which bodes well for earnings of companies in 2022. And therefore, there's an opportunity to do some strategic purchasing in 2021, given the outlook for 2022.
And you mentioned that economic recovery and tourism. Tourism Minister Dionisio D'Aguilar has said that he expects that the tourism rebound will be sooner rather than later. And how do we expect that to filter out to even some of the family islands?
Well, based on some of my contacts, the high end of the tourism market is already recovering. So, some of the high-end hotels here in New Providence, but also properties in the outer islands are already seeing strong numbers, believe it or not. And that's positive news. And also little things, you look on the street and you see whether it's limos or tour company vans taking individuals from the airport. You see more of them on the road. You see them more frequently. So these are little things we look to as indicators for an uptick in tourism. Downtown on Bay Street, there's it's not a lot of tourists, but there's definitely a noticeable increase in the number of tourists walking on Bay Street than, say, 3 weeks ago. So we're moving in the right direction, and we expect it to continue during the course of 2021, feeding into better results in 2022 for local publicly traded companies.
Well, thank you for that insight, David. It is always a pleasure to speak with RF.
Thank you.
Well, tonight in sports, the UB Mingo's athletics program has a solid performance at a local track and field meet. Marcellus Hall has the highlights.
Thanks, Christina. Welcome to our Sports on a Hump Day Wednesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. With the UB Athletics program continues its development process. Part of that is competing in a number of local meets in order to get their athletes as many reps as possible. This past weekend, they competed at the inaugural Red Line Classic with some very good results. Let's take a look. UB Mingo's picking up a few wins and having a strong showing at the inaugural Red Line Athletics track meet held over this past weekend. Rumika Josie competing in the women's 400 meters. She says she struggled in the last quarter of the race, nonetheless holding on for the win in 1:01.69.
I know I got to do better. Body's a little fatigued. I got to work on that, get more rest, do a lot of things to get it together. But other than that, I understood what I need to do, and I understood what went wrong, so I'm going to work on that next practice. The start was good. I had a good 300, and after that, my body was just saying, that's all right, that's okay. We can't do no more. So when after 300, my body just hold on. I actually walked 100 meters, but I didn't but I couldn't do nothing else because my body was just tired.
In the open men's 400, Mingo's with a 1-2 combination as Kendrick Thompson picking up the win in 49.20 seconds. Donye Roberts, a close second. He finished in 49.66.
Been working on a lot of speed lately, and then I still kind of fell short. Now I realize I got to work on more like my finish, because after the 350, I did nothing left. So I still got a lot of work to do, but I felt good though. At practice, we just were practicing on race modeling. I got out as fast as I could. And at the back stretch, I would try not to hammer it too much because I would lose energy like that. I just save, but not slow down at the same time. And then I was taught that by the 200, as I reached the 200, I just pick it up slowly, not all the way between the 115 or 130. I'll bring it home and anything I have left for me.
And another stellar performance for the Mingos in the open triple jump as Keanu Roll finished second with a best jump of 14.51 meters. That's 50 feet 10 inches, a new personal best.
I came out feeling good. The weather was nice. I went out there, say I would have given my all, and I came out successfully with a personal best.
And that's your look at sports for you here on this Wednesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Marcellus. Coming up, 2 companies team up to feed families for Easter. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our news. Mostly sunny skies ahead. Greg is back in the Weather Center with the outlook.
Thanks again, Christina, and a happy Wednesday evening, everybody. Warm day around the islands once again as we remain under control of a high-pressure ridge. At the surface, jutting out of the Atlantic across area, we also have a high sitting across the Cuban area in the mid and upper levels, all suppressing cloud development across our area, keeping our conditions rather dry and stable. And those temperatures are going to start rising for the next couple of days. Should be in the mid to upper 80s. We experienced 86 here in the capital today, and that high will continue to keep things towards the north and away from us. Boating conditions for the northwest and central Bahamas: east-southeasterly flow, 10 to 15 knot seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean, while in the southeast Bahamas we have a more easterly flow at 15 knot seas expected to be 3 to 5 feet over the ocean. Your low tide will be at 11:25 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. I'll look now at your extended forecast through Monday. That's a look at our weather. Make it a great night, everybody. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg. Well, due to job losses caused by the pandemic, some families cannot afford to put a meal on the table this Easter. Tula Masks owner Lisa Goody and Showman Eat Bistro have teamed up to change that.
This was a natural process for us. So of course, when he started to discuss getting something back, I wanted to support him in his ideas, and so that's when I reached out to Ray at Showman, and here we are.
The aim is to feed at least 100 families through the sale of limited edition silk Tula masks. 50% of the proceeds of those sales will go toward purchasing Showman's Easter Bless a Family meal kits.
There's still that need. And so when you see persons pulling up and saying, hey, I'm living out of my car, me and my cat living in the car, I'm here to pick up my package, then your heart goes out. You have to have empathy.
Well, thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas. The new Sawyer Boy TV show is up next.